So what happened with my client is after she started implementing, she was like, okay, well, I'm going to try this give time space thing. And she just kept on doing it. You know, our most successful clients literally like, let me just try that. Let's see if it actually, let me implement it. And let's just not think about it. Let me implement and see if this actually moves the needle forward, right? And especially if you're an entrepreneur that has a vision that's compelled, you're going to want to figure out, well, how do I get to that place of clarity? How do I get to that place where I know I want to go? And so for her, what happened as she started to implement it, guess what started to happen soon after she started working with us? She had dropped a toxic relationship. She went on vacation with her best, beautiful goddess girlfriends. And she came back and she's like, oh, it just came to me. I know what I'm going to do. I know what I'm going to do with my coaching. I'm not going to do it separately. I'm not going to do this like website and then after this wellness, I'm going to actually create a branding coaching program. And I'm not just a branding coaching program that is just going to do the superficial thing. We're actually going to go deep and look at how to bring forth the magic. And we're going to go in this kind of high touch, high ticket premium spaces, which where I teach my clients, you know, and we're going to do this together, diving deep in what they really want to expose and what they really want to speak in their branding. And so that happened when she created space. Now that's just the beginning, because when you create space, the downloads come. But now how do we actually take that download and bring it here on earth? Okay, that's the thing. Sometimes we have these downloads and we have these hits of genius. And then we kind of, the mistake we do is we go back into creativity. And then we find more kind of creative problems to solve. But what we don't realize is when we have that hit of genius, we have that moment of intuition. Now, how do we take that and we put it into a structure that implements it and allows you to actually get it out there, right? Out from the ethers and out there into the world. And so here's where creative tension comes from, okay? And the process I bring my clients through is we start to look at with my client, okay, so and the funny thing is, in that time where she was giving time space, which was step number 1, she also landed her 3 dreamiest clients. When she was a little bit foggy, this is what happens, okay? This is what manifestation does. She resonated and she manifested kind of a sort of not so, kind of nightmare client and her dreamiest client. And that's sort of what happens when we're sort of a little bit, we know what we don't want and we know what we want. Life is going to literally mirror it back to her. And so that's what happens. It mirrors it back to her. And then as she became more clear, giving time space, she landed three high-paying clients of her dreamiest clients. And so here's where the creative tension comes from. Okay, so then the next time we got on a call, she was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this and I'm going to like create this DIY program and I'm going to do this passive income thing. And it's like, whoa. Wait a minute. What happened with your three clients? And what worked? And this is one of the things that I ask my clients, what worked in that scenario? What we realized, and this is what I teach my clients, what worked is that she had, these clients were already entrepreneurs. These clients already created businesses. These clients were able to move through her process because they worked, side by side to really bring out this, what, first of all, whenever you create something like more of the kind of superficial and comfort comes out. And so what she realized, that's part of the process. And then the next part of the process is that, okay, wait a minute. As you kind of look at what you don't want, you start to realize, wait a minute, that's not truly where I've evolved now. So her clients also come from this place where it's like they're in a business, but they've evolved now. So what happened was we looked at, okay, so step number 1, what was step number 1? Oh, I'm already speaking to entrepreneurs. I'm already, people who are already implementing their business, but now they're in a place of evolution. And they're also kind of what she called stubborn, but really they're people who are solo entrepreneurs who are been used to kind of running the show on their own. And now they're doing it. Now they kind of need help to evolve. right? And so these kind of 5 steps that we looked at together seemed kind of obvious and simple, but if we didn't actually stay in the creative tension of what works, okay, wait a minute, let's go back. Let's literally write down a systematized processes that came from your own development and your own creation. And that's what I want to tell you guys, is that creativity comes already, it's already there. And through your own processes, you draw out and you continue to draw out that creative process from what you've already done. Again, from your experience, from your life experience with other people, and from your professional training, like though that triangle. Okay, and so if you were to work with me, we draw that out. And so what she realized, instead of kind of going off on another creative tangent, we stayed in step number 2, creative tension. What works? And this is the most challenging. This is like where the consistency comes in. Okay, is the creativity. Once the creativity comes through, and once you allow it to kind of work its magic, and you do, what your zone of genius. Because when you're in your zone of genius, guess what? Things flow. And when you're in your, tell me if this is true for you, when you're with your clients, there's this sort of like natural kind of channeling that starts to happen, and what needs to happen happens. Okay, that's how you know you're in your creative genius. And then from that creative genius, there creates processes. Okay, you're not creating processes out of thin air, or even based on what you learned. You're creating processes on what has already worked for you and your clients. And so here's where the consistency comes in. You look at that, and that if you were to work with me, we deeply look at that. Okay, because sometimes you're so, you know, when you're so good at something, like you cook a certain meal and you're so good at it that you don't necessarily know exactly how much salt you put and exactly how much basil you put. It's the same thing for your creative genius. Often it just comes so naturally, right? And so I'd help you, develop that process and really look at what's working so that we stay in that creative tension. And guess what? You do it again. And every time you do it, and this is where the consistency and creativity have this dance. Every time you do it, right? It's like every time you create a recipe, every time you cook something, you know what's the secret ingredients, and then sometimes you tweak it. Sometimes you realize, if I just cook the rice a little longer, it's gonna have this slightly different results.